It started on a quiet evening in a small town, the kind of place where everyone knows each other and not much ever changes. Among the crowd at a local community event stood a woman who most people barely noticed: simple clothes, calm eyes, and the kind of quiet presence that often goes overlooked. Her name was Clara. She wasn't flashy, she didn't speak much, and many just assumed she didn't have much to say. But what they didn't know was that Clara had a story and a talent that would soon leave everyone in complete shock. The event was meant to be light-hearted, a bit of fun, a local talent show where anyone could perform. But things took a strange turn when a group of performers, with smirks on their faces, called Clara to the stage. It started as a joke. "Why did you show us what you've got?" they said, laughing among themselves. Someone handed her an old violin, dusty and worn out, almost as if they expected her to fail. The crowd chuckled softly, assuming this would be awkward, maybe even a little embarrassing. But Clara didn't flinch. She took the violin gently, as if it was something sacred. For a moment, everything went quiet. No one expected what came next. Her fingers moved with grace, her bow floated across the strings, and a sound so pure, so full of emotion filled the room. People froze. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. It was as if time itself paused to listen. And just as the final note echoed through the hall, the crowd still in stunned silence. Something unexpected happened that no one could have predicted, but we'll get to that in a moment, because Clara's story is only just beginning. The final note faded, but no one clapped, not because they didn't want to, but because they were still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. A woman they had barely paid attention to, mocked moments ago, had just played the violin with the kind of emotion that reaches into your soul. Her hands trembled slightly as she lowered the bow, not from fear, but from holding back everything she had kept buried inside for years. And yet, Clara didn't smile. She didn't bow. She simply turned and started to leave the stage. Whispers began to spread through the crowd. Who is she? Where did she learn to play like that? Some people looked embarrassed, especially the ones who had tried to humiliate her. But Clara didn't look at anyone. She walked calmly, head held high, and disappeared behind the curtain as if none of it had happened. What most people didn't know was that Clara hadn't always lived in this quiet town. Years ago, she had trained at one of the best music schools in Europe. She was a rising star until tragedy struck. Something happened that made her walk away from everything. Her violin gathered dust in the attic. Her name was forgotten in the music world. She had come to this small town for peace, to escape the noise of the past. But talent like hers doesn't just vanish. It waits, quietly, until the right moment forces it out. And now that moment had come. But what Clara didn't know was that someone in the crowd recognized her, someone from her past, and they weren't just surprised to see her, they were angry. Because Clara's music wasn't just beautiful, it was dangerous. And the silence that followed her performance, it wasn't just awe, it was the calm before something much bigger. Backstage, Clara leaned against the wall, gripping the edge of the old violin. Her heart was racing, but her face stayed calm. She had only meant to play a few notes, enough to move past the moment and leave quietly. But the music had taken over, pouring out years of pain, silence, and memories. She hadn't planned to be seen, truly seen, not like that. Meanwhile, in the audience, a man sat frozen in his seat. His eyes hadn't left the stage since Clara walked off. His name was Victor, a former conductor who once stood at the center of grand concert halls, now reduced to teaching small-town music classes. But long ago, he had been more than just a mentor to Clara. He had been part of the reason she vanished from the music world. Seeing her again, here of all places, shook something in him. Not guilt, not remorse, but fear. Because Victor knew something the rest of the crowd didn't. Clara's gift wasn't just talent, it was rare, raw, and powerful. When she played, it stirred people, exposed hidden feelings, and sometimes revealed things meant to stay buried. He had watched it happen before. Long ago, Her performance at a private gala had uncovered secrets people wanted to keep quiet. The fallout ruined careers, ended relationships, and Clara was blamed for the chaos. That night changed everything. Back in the present, word of her performance began spreading beyond the town. A video, shaky but clear, had already been uploaded to social media. Comments flooded in. "Who is this woman? This sound is unreal. I can't stop watching." The world was starting to remember her name. But the past was catching up fast, and as Clara stepped outside into the cool night air, she had no idea that her playing had just reopened wounds some people would do anything to keep closed. The town buzzed with whispers the next morning. Clara's name, once barely spoken, was now on everyone's lips. People passed around the video, sharing it online with words like *unbelievable talent* and *mystery violinist*. But with attention came pressure. Reporters began calling the community center. Music bloggers started digging into her past. And Clara, who had spent years carefully hiding in plain sight, suddenly found herself at the center of something she couldn't control. Victor watched it all unfold with growing unease. He knew the spotlight would draw out more than just fans. There were people connected to what happened years ago, people who lost everything after that fateful performance, and they wouldn't be happy to see Clara back. She hadn't just stepped back into music, she had stepped onto a path that led straight into the heart of old secrets. Clara felt it too. Every time she walked outside, she sensed eyes on her. Letters began showing up in her mailbox, some kind, encouraging her to return to music, others not so kind. One note, unsigned, simply read, "*You should have stayed gone. *. Still, she kept playing, alone behind closed doors. The violin, once a source of pain, now felt like the only thing grounding her. But something was changing in her music. It was darker, heavier, like her emotions were bleeding straight into every note. And the more she played, the more the past began creeping back, old faces in her dreams, names she hadn't heard in years, places she swore she'd never return to. Then came the invitation. An anonymous letter, written in careful handwriting, arrived on her doorstep. *1 final performance. One night only. Come alone. No signature. No explanation. Just a date, a time, and a place she hadn't seen since everything fell apart. Clara stared at it for a long time, heart pounding, because she knew this wasn't just a concert. It was a trap. Clara held the letter in her hands long after the sun had set, her fingers brushing over the words like they might change if she stared long enough. The address written at the bottom chilled her. It was the old concert hall outside the city, the same one where everything had unraveled all those years ago. It had been closed for years, left to rot in silence. Why there? Why now? She almost didn't go. But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, something unresolved, pulled her toward it. The night of the invitation, she took the violin and left without telling anyone. Not even the few people she trusted. Her heart thudded in her chest as she stepped inside the building, where dust clung to velvet curtains and broken chandeliers hung like forgotten memories. The silence inside was heavier than she remembered. Then, without warning, a light snapped on above the stage. Clara froze. She wasn't alone. A familiar voice echoed through the room, calm but sharp. "I didn't think you'd actually come." Victor stepped out from the shadows, but he wasn't alone either. Another figure appeared beside him, a woman Clara hadn't seen in over a decade. Elise, once her closest friend, now a ghost from her past. The last time Clara had seen her was the night of that disastrous performance. The night Elise's reputation had collapsed after Clara's music revealed more than just emotion, it revealed truth. Clara's chest tightened. "Why are you both here?" Elise's eyes were cold. "To finish what you started." Victor said nothing. He only gestured toward the stage. "Play for us, one last time." Something was wrong. Clara could feel it. This wasn't about music anymore. It was about control, revenge, and something buried so deep even she hadn't faced it. And as she lifted the violin once more, she realized this wasn't the climax of her story, it was the storm before it. Clara stood on the stage, her fingers gripping the violin tighter than ever. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of electricity from the old lights above. Victor and Elise watched her from the edge of the shadows, their expressions unreadable. The weight of old wounds hung between them, years of silence, betrayal, and blame wrapped in one unfinished melody. She raised the bow. At first, the notes came out shaky, not because she was afraid, but because she felt everything at once: regret, anger, love, grief. But with each stroke, her music grew stronger. It wasn't polished or perfect. It was raw, honest. The kind of sound that cuts through the noise of lies and half-truths. She played the story they had all been avoiding. The night the music exposed Elise's secret affair with a sponsor, the political deals Victor made to protect himself, and how they both pinned the fallout on her to save their reputations. Clara's violin told it all. Every note blurred truth. Elise's face twisted. "Stop it," she hissed. But Clara didn't. The melody soared, filling the old concert hall like it had back then. This time, though, there was no crowd, just the three of them, and everything they had buried now laid bare. Victor finally spoke, voice trembling. "We were wrong." The music stopped. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Elise turned and walked away, her silence saying more than any apology could. Victor looked down, ashamed, before following behind. Clara stood alone on the stage, but it wasn't like before. This time, she felt free. She lowered her violin, and that's when the final twist revealed itself. From the shadows, a young woman stepped forward, camera in hand. "I streamed the whole thing," she said softly. "The world just heard your truth." Clara stared at the young woman with the camera, unsure whether to feel shocked or relieved. Her truth, so carefully hidden for years, was now out in the open for the entire world to see. But instead of fear, she felt something else rising inside her. Peace. The lies were no longer hers to carry. The video spread quickly, not just across the internet, but through news outlets, music blogs, and forums filled with people who remembered her name. Asterisk, the woman who vanished. Asterisk, asterisk, the violinist with a haunting past. Asterisk, but this time, the headlines told a side of the story. The truth finally had a voice. Victor resigned quietly from the music board he once ruled. Elise vanished from the spotlight, her silence an admission in itself. And Clara? She stayed in that quiet town a little longer, but she didn't hide anymore. People began asking her to teach, to perform, to share what she kept locked away. Not as a comeback, but as herself. The small community that once looked past her now listened when she spoke. They saw not just a woman with a violin, but someone who had survived, forgiven, and turned pain into something beautiful. Her story became more than just a viral moment. It became a message. That even when the world turns its back, the truth has a way of finding light. That quiet strength can shake a room louder than any applause. And that sometimes, the ones the world forgets, are the ones who end up changing it. Clara played again, but this time it wasn't to prove anything. It was just for the love of music. And when the final note hung in the air, soft and clear, she smiled. Because her story was finally complete.